guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be reviewing the latest release from Alma Katsu. It's called Fiend. I just received this in a recent Nightworms package, and this is also a novel that has been on my most anticipated reads of 2025 list from earlier in the year. Very excited to get to this. Alma Katsu is an artist, I guess so, is an author I discovered at the very beginning of the pandemic. I started reading The Deep, which is her like historical fiction on the Titanic sinking, as well as the Britannic sinking. Really interesting read. Really enjoyed that. She's probably best known for her novel The Hunger, which is a fictional supernatural retelling of the tragedy of the Donner Party. I was not the biggest fan of that novel, and I liked The Fervor, which is another historical supernatural retelling of the like struggles of Japanese Americans during World War II. Really interesting read, and it brings in a lot of Japanese folklore. But all to say, some of her novels have been fine, some of her novels have been misses. I really enjoyed The Deep, and I do like her writing style and her prose. I was excited to read Fiend, which is not historical fiction. So definitely really interested in this. I'm going to read the inside flat, and we're going to dive in and chat about it. The Beresha family runs one of the largest import-export companies in the world, and they've always been lucky. Their rivals suffer strokes, inconvenient buildings catch on fire, earthquakes swallow up manufacturing plants, destroying harmful evidence. Things always seem to work out for the Bereshas. They're blessed. At least that is what Zeph, the patriarch, has always told his 3 children. And each of them knows their place in the family. Darden, as the only male heir, must prepare to take over as keeper of the Beresha secrets. Maris's most powerful contribution, much to her dismay, will be to marry strategically, and Nora's job, as the youngest, is to just stay out of the way. But when things stop going as planned and the family blessing starts looking more like a curse, the Bereshas begin to splinter, each hatching their own secret scheme. They didn't get to be one of the richest families in the world without spilling a little blood, but this time, it might be their own. Alrighty guys, let's chat about this. This is kind of like Succession. For fans of Succession, 100%. On the back of the book it talks about that if you like Succession as well. This is definitely like in that realm. It's about a very rich family and the children of the patriarch fighting over who is going to lead the family and take over as the CEO of a company. Except also when you take over as CEO, it comes with like a demon. So, interesting. I was a huge fan of the first half of this book. I really loved the characters. I really loved the structure of the family. I loved the power struggle and the dynamic of the 3 children and the relationship to their father. I loved their weird relationship with the mom. I really thought that this laid the groundwork for a really cool novel. Unfortunately, this laid the groundwork for a really cool, like, 800-page novel. And instead, it's only about 200 pages. And I think this is where this novel suffers for me. Because while the concept is cool, it reminded me a lot of that final season of Game of Thrones, where you lay out a lot of really awesome stuff and then just like go 0 to 120 and get there so fast. And so when the ending came, which is a bit of a twist, I got it. I was like, cool. I didn't really see that coming. I appreciate this weird, twisty ending. You really can tell how much Alma Katsu was influenced by watching Succession, which is also fun. But it just felt very quick. It's such a slow build to give you like a richness and depth of the characters to then snatch everything away from the reader so fast. I really felt like the latter half of the book, especially after this significant plot point with Darden happens, should have been like another 400 to 600 pages. I really needed more character development with Maris, way more character development with Nora. I really wanted to look into like backgrounds of who Darden was as a younger character, because we talk about his past so much. But don't really dive into it. Whereas with Nora and Maris, I feel like you get so many flashbacks to their childhood that really round out who they are in present day. But with Darden, I felt like I wanted more. I also felt like I needed more about the mystery of Darden's ski trip. I felt like there was so much room and so much space that Alma Katsu could have poured just, again, hundreds and hundreds of pages into these characters and the storyline, and I would have kept reading it. I really wanted to know more about Olga, their mother, who is definitely a defined character. Like, I don't feel like we don't have a tangible grasp on who she is, but I want to know about her marriage with Zeph in much greater detail. I want like an entire 2 chapters based on her relationship with Zeph through these flashbacks. Zeph as well, I would have loved a chapter on him in his teenage years. He has a really interesting beginning to his life. He kind of gets swept up into this company and this family as the patriarch when he's, I believe, about 21 years old, and I think that was a really interesting story as well. And there's so many seeds in this novel that I would have loved to have sown, and they just aren't. So the ending comes on really quickly, and I felt like it kind of bulldozed over what could be a phenomenal read, and a really cool concept. And I'm not going to get into the twist in this video because I just don't think it's imperative to this review, but like when the twist arrives, had we spent more time in depth with all of our lead characters to get to that point, I think it would have had more of an impact on me. I feel like I would have definitely been like, oh wow, like I see exactly where it was coming from. All of the groundwork was laid for that, but I feel like it would have hurt that much more. The ages of these characters I also think is wrong. Nora is 22, Maris is 25, Darden is 28. I need all of these ages moved up about 10 years. I think it makes far more sense for Darden to be in his mid to late 30s. Maris definitely needs to be around 35, maybe 33. And Nora cannot just be a 22-year-old. Like, she's got so much going on with her life, and like life experiences that form and shape her storyline, that she should not be 22. She hasn't experienced enough life to have the opinions and the motivations that she has. All of these characters just don't make sense in their 20s. They're too young for everything that is being set up, and I think had they been older in the way that the characters in Succession are, I think it would have definitely hit harder. And so that was one of the things that bothered me, is Nora being 22 bothered me. And you can still even play up the naive party girl. Like, she could have been 28, you know? But those 6 years different in age would have just elevated her character so much more and made so much more of the plot make sense. Same with Maris too. Like, she's 25 and she's acting in almost this like, just like a very jaded manner for a 25-year-old, but she's also way too up in the company. And I know it's like a weird commentary on like nepotism, but it just doesn't make sense for somebody to be gunning for CEO at the age of 25. Like, I also imagine Zeph would have paid for these kids to have like crazy educations. Like, obviously, like the Nora thing makes sense that maybe she wouldn't have, but I feel like there's no way that Maris is even at the company yet. She's probably still finishing grad school, or just freshly out of grad school. And I really wanted that to be depicted in this story. I feel like there was just so much groundwork and such a cool idea from this novel, and I did enjoy this book. This is a 4-star read for me, but the whole time I just wanted more. And so now I'm sitting here picking it apart and like just telling you guys everything that this book could have been. It is better than The Hunger. I liked it far more than The Fervor as well. Definitely not as much as The Deep. The Deep is a really fun read, even though it is this kind of weird historical take on a very dark, awful tragedy. I really loved the richness that was put into The Deep, that this one just seems to be lacking. And so that really bummed me out about this one. There's some really interesting scenes, and again, there's some really cool twists, and some really like unique and interesting characters. But again, I just felt like I was just being like given a pilot to something that could have been so much more. And so that definitely bummed me out with this one. However, if you're a fan of Alma Katsu's writing, I do think that you will enjoy this book. It's got an interesting setting as like the New York socialite upper class elite for you guys to really dive into, and I think it's done very, very well. I really did enjoy the New York setting. I liked the townhouses. I loved the format of the flashbacks. I think the way that Alma Katsu did her flashbacks was very, very effective. I really loved the scene of Maris hiding in her dad's office, watching this like Godfather-esque like trail of family members coming in, asking for favors and paying their respects to the patriarch. I thought that was really, really well done. But I still, at the end of the day, just wanted more. Which I guess, like, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, again, this isn't a bad book. It's just not. It's just one of those ones where it could have been something massive and amazing and filled with so many cool ideas, and it was just fully truncated to 200 pages, and I think that it did it a serious disservice. So yeah. Bummed about that, but still really, really fun. Very like topical for like the nature of the world today, especially here in America. So I felt that was very intentional on Katsu's behalf, and I'm just happy to see her stepping out of like historical fiction. Again, my issue with The Hunger is that is all, like, the Donner Party is a horrible tragedy, and it is a terrifying story in and of itself. Throwing in these weird supernatural elements on like the Oregon Trail or whatever they were taking doesn't do anything to make that story scarier. In my opinion, it just kind of cheapens reflecting back on the tragedy. The Deep, I think, because it paid so much attention to like the historical fascination with seances of that time period of the sinking of the Titanic, I think worked a little bit better, just because it tied it so closely to the culture at the time that I didn't mind it as much as I did with The Hunger. And then I'm still just not 100% sure what was going on in The Fervor. But I'm really happy to see Alma Katsu coming up with something cool and interesting and unique, and very much original, even if she's pretty much just like riffing off of Succession. This could have been so much more, and it bummed me out so much that it wasn't. And I hate that the demon's powers were not explained. I really needed more from that. Like, the legend of how he came to be was really, really interesting. And I just needed to understand how he operated, because it just kind of felt like an afterthought with a lot of instances. Like, there's a scene where a character gets like demoned away in a bedroom. And I just like didn't understand the elements of the supernatural forces that went into that scene, when it felt like every other time, like, the way the demon operated was more rooted in reality, of not just like all of a sudden this like convenience of being able to clean the mess up very nicely with a bow presented itself. So I thought that was interesting. Also, Nora and Maris, they are a questionable group of siblings. Darden was definitely my favorite character by far. His story made a lot of relatable sense. I just really, at the end of the day, felt that his storyline needed to be expanded, especially when we look at who he was as a child and who he was as a teenager. And that entire ski trip scene is so important throughout the like first 2/3 of the book. And then kind of feels like it goes nowhere. So I would have loved to see more in Darden's motivations for what happened that night and why. Because again, it just went nowhere, and I just felt like that could have been another like 50 pages exploring just that story alone, and I would have been so for it. So 4 stars, very, very low end of 4 stars, but still very enjoyable. Like, I did read this book very, very quickly, but realized also very early on in the second half that it was speed rushing itself way too quickly. So unfortunately, it left me wanting a lot more. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I'm trying to post 2, sometimes 3 times a week. And if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you on the next one. Mwah.